102, for example, where there are very few students, but we can look at the data and see if you fail this module, and I'm just using it as an example, there's a likelihood that you will drop out. So we need to look at what are these connections between the ways we can predict these things and deal with them. I've mentioned cohort studies. Finally, I want to also highlight that we do academic reviews well in this institution, but our strategy will also need to again close the loop on how we think about what we are doing in programs and in the curriculum that is outside of a department and is more integrated across a program. And that's where we are putting in structures to be able to do that work. I think the final 2 points that I want to raise, I've spoken a lot about this quality loop, what I also, and it starts with even an idea for a new program and accrediting a new program. What does that mean? Where's the student voice? Have we looked at all of the factors around that? And obviously graduate tracking and the tracer studies that we've spoken about. So I think for us that is at the moment the way the strategy is panning out, with these big areas and some indication of what this means. It looks at this point more like a framework than a strategy. We'd like lots of discussion about it. We've had some focus group discussions with lecturers, deputy deans, teaching and learning specialists, but we need input from you and other people. Okay. Yes.
Can I have any comments or questions? I am here. I like this picture. It's very on one thing. Since we also from a Czech perspective put a focus on graduate employability, is there a way in which, besides the graduate tracking, that we can look upfront about the employability of our graduates when we conceptualize the program? Yeah. Because some professional programs would have the advisory committees, but in a sense it's almost very voluntary. Okay. But what about, I worry about the BA. What do our students do? And I understand that the arts faculty has taken the approach years ago that they're not going to have any career-focused programs. But maybe they should rethink in this next period as we're doing enrollment planning, that maybe 1 or 2 career-focused programs from the arts faculty would be, I'm thinking multimedia or journalism or those kind of programs where you can, at the end of the day, you are more secure in terms of employment, because a lot of students that will be studying, say, English, and filmmaking is embedded in English, but it's not something that we promote. You wouldn't even know that we have all these workshops, for example, taking place around filmmaking. And Cape Town is a bustling filmmaking industry, and also a sought-after destination to shoot cheaper movies. I don't know if you're aware of that. Now what Toronto has done very well as a city was to actually focus on it being the destination. So a lot of the Hollywood films that we see are actually shot in Toronto and not in Hollywood. I don't know if you know that. And they marketed themselves as a city where the film industry, and that led to the Toronto Film Festival. So it's something that we're having conversations about, but I do worry about the generic, because we also have a generic BSc. So for example, we promote and say, you can come to UWC, you can come and study forensic sciences. I have a daughter who's interested, you can't do it. It's a module somewhere in biotechnology in the 3rd year, and we can't say that we're actually offering forensic sciences. You see what I mean? So it's about that thinking through of the curriculum and linking it to, and we might want to look at our own analysis, because the Czech study actually had, and we're going to do a follow-up study next year. The Czech study had UWC specific data. Yeah. So we might want to look at that and the follow-up study, and then look, it might not be overall, but and especially for those that are not in the professional programs. Even the law faculty had to rethink a bit around that second purpose, which is the third purpose, which is how do you prepare students not for entry into any of the legal parts of the legal profession. But how do you use law in other professions? You know, remember that third part of the standards. So I just think we need to work in the graduate employment. But I'm very pleased with the work that has already been done. So I have one or two things on your slides. Can I maybe just ask Vanessa, would you be able to, your intro is very powerful. Would you be able to put that intro, just a few things on slides to preface this? And especially like how Sue has done, where does it fit into the bigger strategy? And it links them both, of course, to both goals and the Apex project, and like she's done. Because then it actually, for people who come into this fold, it really positions it where it is that. And since we now identified this as one of our 4 key priorities to 2020 and beyond, because this is not going to be a one-day thing, a one-year thing, it might be useful to say this is phase 1 of our operations, student success, and in phase 2 we need to talk about how do we take this further, okay? Especially around beyond the first year. And I made the point yesterday that when we design buildings, we don't consult with us as the people that would be actually like this. It's not conducive, not in the new way of which. So for those future buildings is something that we also need to let institutional planning and finance know that we need to look at our learning spaces and more conducive learning spaces and how we use space. In your infrastructure part is also how I'm seeing that it's not going to be just in the lecture venue, but every little space that you have should be an formal learning space. Like the benches, there should be benches here in front of the, like the CAMS has done it well. But if you compare CAMS to chemical sciences is dead. Life sciences is dead. You walk in there, besides the fact that there's no color, it is really not like the CAMS building, and we need to learn from these. And maybe consult before we get architects that are architects, but they're not learning and teaching specialists. You see, and I think there's an institutional gap there. And I don't know where you would put that, probably just to expand on your infrastructure. I'm almost wanting to say that our teaching and learning infrastructure and spaces and resources, because we need to foreground the issue of the spaces that are also informal learning spaces and not just this. And then of course, don't get me started on ABS. I think it's we can't be doing Zoom if we can't get the basics of our ABS right, you know. And one thing I just want to mention, when I was at Missouri, I was amazed that ABS is not with them, it's a production team. It's not running to a room and going and fixing whatever. There's actually someone monitoring the production of what is happening in the classroom from a videography perspective, from an IT perspective. They support the lecturers to be able to do these videos and things. But you must remember, a lot of people are not familiar with that. And we started this whole thing of digital storytelling, and the more you do it, the better you and that should be part of our professionalization courses as well. Besides it's part of the multimodal, I think. But anyway, I've now spoken too much. Any questions or comments that you find very burning? But please make note that you also put that down, jot it down, so that we can take it into account with the further consultation on the retention strategy, the guidelines. Vanessa, I'm even happy if it becomes a framework that you can have your strategy, the action plan that will match your framework, because it might be difficult to actually just call it a strategy, because a strategy is not worth anything if you don't have an action plan to deal with those things and a timeline to it as well. Questions? We are supposed to have a roving mic, but I see it's not here today. Oh yeah, okay. So you might want to come to the front as well in case you have questions for me.
Good morning, good day. I just wanted to talk about the teaching and curriculum and assessment. I think, linking up the first year students' experiences and obviously going on as well, I think it's important for each program that we offer at the university is that we have a program of assessment holistically. So we can see clearly how the assessment is taking place across all the modules for first year, second year, third year, and fourth year if necessary, and see where there's overlaps. And we're not assessing the same thing, we're not duplicating, but rather addressing the outcomes and the various NQW descriptors that we're supposed to be doing. In that way, I think we will be able to send out a better candidate to the workplace rather than people just teaching their own modules in silos and some people are repeating the same thing. You know?
In fact, we can also make a note assessment policy. It should be high on our list for next year.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. We're trying to really move to this new approach to program assessment, program review, program evaluations, and those are the very conversations that have to happen for us to get outside of the module box that we're in.
And your point is now
Over here?
curriculum.
Yes, I just want to add that in ABU we have appointed a new person, Arwan Zaminchi, who comes with years of experience in doing precisely that. Curriculum review and program review.
Design.
And design and so on. So we'll be providing a lot of capacity for people to do that work.
Just before I hand it over, I just want to talk about the other one is about you need to look at assessment from an integration point of view. How do we integrate assessment across modules?
Yeah, both and the types of assessments that we work, including online.
Thank
Worry
you.
about online.
Talking about assessment, I see elsewhere there's a move where if we use students as partners in the assessment, you know, and a typical example of that would be if you set up a paper, 20% of the questions maybe should come from the students themselves. That already informs you that they've gone through the content, you know, because they are being part of what's forming the assessment, and it's not solely coming from you. So I think just talking about assessment, that's something that we could look at, because rather than us giving things to them, they are partners in this journey of education. And then the other thing you spoke about that I find very interesting is looking at spaces. You know, and I like what you said. You know, and coming from dentistry and looking at the issue of food security, I remember I spoke to Prof. Vivian Wilson about it. I said, look, this entire building has got lots of unused space. You know, look, there are areas that I understand are there for fire hazards and whatnot. And I thought, you know, I know there's a community in one of the towns in England where they started utilizing all the open spaces in the town for agricultural purposes. You know, we all have rooftops in our buildings. We all have, you know, but it's dead space that we are not utilizing. We're not growing things. We're not. It may be an add-on in terms of it's not really part of our teaching, but it's a value-added something that we are doing to make a better graduate at the end of the day. And I think that was something interesting to look at.
And I'll ask you to also make that suggestion.
Make the suggestion on the piece of paper, please. Have you got? Do we have some paper there? Sorry, Anita. Okay, we got paper and a pen there at the back. Conrad?
I just want to mention something that Rajan was speaking about now, is that what we've done in the law faculty itself is the year forums. We've created the year forums, and we're busy plotting the assessment for each module, for each year group, as well as, besides the horizontal plotting, we're also looking at the vertical as to the scaffolding across the program itself. And this is also to see, we're also asking each lecturer to provide the curriculum, in the sense that there will always be overlapping in each, or not in each, but across modules in a program, which informs students at least that is what we do is not in silos. But now we want people to know what is the other one doing, and that there's no duplicate, not extensive duplication. The other thing with the assessment policy that needs to be looked at is also there needs to be that mind shift amongst academics that examination is not the only summative assessment. I know in our faculty there was the 50% must be an exam, and it's difficult to get people to think differently about that summative assessment, and possibly looking at portfolios. I think someone spoke yesterday about portfolios as well. Portfolio evidence as a summative assessment. And I think that needs to probably be worked into the assessment policy, indicating that that is an option as well.
Thank you. And I think it's crucial that our rules mustn't table that.
Yes.
They don't do it.
Yeah.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Everybody
Sue, for
doesn't know
interesting.
you. Hello, Manisha. Everybody doesn't know you.
So what must I do? Must I say who I am?
Yes, yes, you from EMS.
Manisha Mabit from EMS in Academic Development Department, and my passion is first year students, their success, and especially their challenges. I was saying before the DVC interrupted me. Thank you to Sue and Vanessa for the interesting presentations, and I'm always wanting to be involved and come to things like this. Just a comment and then two things. I can remember that Vanessa, when we started 2 years ago, that Vanessa came to the faculties when she presented stuff, and then we formed a sort of committee, because that was the idea, I think then, that each faculty should have a small committee that would be involved. Now, I'm not trying to get into trouble, but I was put on that committee, I think it was 3 of us, but ever since that time in 2016, I was never called for a meeting or discussion or anything, so I'm not sure what is happening there. And so my comment is actually, yes, it's good to do the cohort studies and all that, but I definitely think the faculty should be involved in this. The first time that we got involved was last year when Sue identified the workshop and she sent them, the info out. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that.
It's a good point, Vanessa. I think you probably need to also have a reference group like Sue has, that cuts across all the faculties. I think that's a very good point. Okay.
Yes, because my thing is that we have the person overseeing and driving it, but definitely input and going forward. Because I think in the faculties where we work with the actual students and in the classes and the stuff, and I know every department, every faculty will have their team of first year people or whatever. So that's just a general comment. But 3 things here, because even the framework that is busy being finalized, I'm hoping that it will then come to the faculties where we can get input and stuff like that, similar to the workshop last year. But 2 things that I'm very happy to see there, and for me it's always about solutions. We have the challenges and stuff, but 2 things if I wrote down here, actually in my Fulbright report when I came back, I sent the report to the DVC and all the people, and I made 2 recommendations. I think it's very important now, or it's only coming to the fore now. The one is food security. And so if you understand, so together with food security is also the commuting. Because for me, UWC takes students from different provinces, but we don't supply them with accommodation. It's a very simple fact. If you accept people coming from Mpumalanga, wherever, then we need to provide accommodation for them, at least at first year. And so again, my Fulbright support, because I looked at what Missouri was doing. How are they strengthening their first years? Because yes, we know that's crucial here. So our commuting students, and I met the other day with the DVC student support, and we talked about that very same issue. Even if we want to go to metro rail or the bus, what is it?
We tried that.
It's not going to work because they're never on time, and that's not enough. enough. So we're looking at, should UWC not start considering having their own transport or getting their own? I'm talking about the students who are off campus. I'm talking about transport providing for everyone. Especially since we know we can't accommodate all the students on campus. So if we start to define get funds or get the outside donor sponsor, that we have our UWC own transport that we can provide for all our students, not only the ones that's in off campus. That for me will, because again, if you look at why students are failing, why students are dropping out, the financial issue is not about paying the fees. That for me is an abstract thing at the end of the year. It's the day-to-day things that are needed. Transport, food, health, study material. Many students don't have that. So again, us as UWC, my question is to the DBC, what are we trying to do to help students in that regard? Those are our killers. If students don't have food, they cannot concentrate. If students don't have money to come to campus, they cannot come. The students are coming to me and saying, Miss, it costs me 480 a week. 480 rand a week to commute to UWC. My mother and father don't have that money. So what do? The 80 rand is 100 rand a day for one day. I decide to come on a Friday because it's tutorials. Or I know I have a test on Saturday, so I will come for that. So these are the things I think that we really need to. We can't anymore say it's not our problem. These are the things that we really need to try and find money and so that we can assist our students. Because if they have food to eat, if they have transport, and if they have access to material, we already strengthen their chances to succeed.
Can I maybe just add here, because I think that you triggered something. I do think that we need to, with us going also the blended learning is not default. So we also need to do something to understand the digital divide. And number two, I think the possibility of accessing electronic materials where we can. I think that will go some way. And then this policy that we have at UWC, which I don't understand, if you're living within a 50-kilometer radius, you cannot do this. I mean, I have one of the top students in education, Marlon, if I may mention Marlon, I won't mention this, and Lucanio. And Lucanio is in the law faculty, as part of this accelerated excellence program that Anita is driving from our office for high performance students, because we also need to do not just to get students to pass, but also that we promote them from good to great. And both of them live in Delft, but they can't live on campus. And the struggles, just from personally dealing with the struggles for Marlon to still be a cool candidate, and he's very driven and very competitive in a sense. His mom is a domestic worker, and for Lucanio as well, but they can't live on rest. So it's those kind of policies. So I think your reference group, Vanessa, will have to be somebody. Just need to maybe delve in and see who should be there from SDS. Institutional planning is there somewhere. How do we make sure that we can get the student voice? For example, the student engagement survey is done by SDS, as well as the learning, what's that? The Lassie, which I can't understand. Sassy and Lassie. I can't understand why SDS would do it. The Lassie we should be doing, you know? So it's those kind of historical things, and me. I've done it before, so I'm not going to give you anything because you're taking my stuff away. And I think if we have a cross-institutional reference group, as well as making sure that it will strengthen the draft that goes to the faculties, and then when the faculty comes, then you have this combined presentation that you can do in the faculties, and then we take it via Senate. I'm actually thinking that I want to ask the rector if we can get a slot in the December Senate. Because I think Senate needs to have this conversation. Instead of us just bringing problems, we must look at the solutions to those problems. So I like your principle of action, but we still do reflection and analysis, and the focus on data analytics. I don't think we do it well enough at the moment. I had I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Cheryl Pierce, Student Enrollment Management Unit. Thanks, Vanessa, for that very comprehensive and thorough presentation. Before I pick up on that, just to say, Prof, that in terms of living conditions or residential provision for first years, only about 600 beds are allocated. So besides the geographical radius, I think that the policy with respect to first years and the provision for first years really needs to be looked at. But to come back to your presentation, you referred to George Sabowski's work and the student walk, and it doesn't start once a student is registered here. So I just wondered whether you had any thoughts as a result of the research with respect to what this means for admission and selection policy, and especially in light of the fact that you're also proposing as part of the framework that your academic rules and policies need to have a look at, you know. And because the student walk doesn't start at the point of registration, I want to make a request that SEMU is included in the both first year reference group as well as the retention reference group. Thanks.
Just short response is like a very good point, Cheryl, because our research, I mean, when we talk to faculty, there is a sense that recruitment and marketing and getting students into the university is somebody else's business. And lecturers complain that this is not done well enough, that's why we don't have enough of this. And so the framework needs to help people understand that that is, so it's again the whole loop on program completion is where you're going to get your students. It's not SEMU's job to go out into a school and advertise all our programs. It's the job of somebody in the faculty, somebody representing the program. And that's another shift that we have to make.
But what you said will follow up.
I think it's not just about who represents the university in that conversation, but it's about who is it that we target, you know? So we have a very almost crude selection policy, and it needs to be far more nuanced to consider, if we think of the wagon wheel approach from a selection perspective and all the factors that you, now this can be very contested territory, but if we're looking at all these factors at our current students, then maybe we should just say, well, what does that mean from a selection policy perspective? And I think UWC is ready to engage in that conversation.
Cheryl, very important, remember we're going to have the no fee, the fee-free education. And I don't think we've wrapped our heads around. And we might think that those students that traditionally would come to us because they couldn't afford the others, they will still come to us. I think we're in for a big surprise. Of course, we will be better off because we know how to assist those students and to enable the success. I think we're a bit better than some of our neighboring institutions. So their shock would be, oh, what must I do? It's now a different kind of profile of the students that come to me. So I think there we've got a bit of an advantage. But I don't think we must overplay the advantage. As it is, we're not necessarily a first choice. And it might be a second or third choice. And I think we need to think through our admission and selection policy. Admission, selection, and recruitment policy should be all in one. That's another of the policies that we need to be amended. We're just making work for ourselves, but I think it's important that we actually deal with this. You go?
Sorry, yeah, just wanted to comment. I didn't get a chance to write down any kind of comments on my side, but I do input on evaluation with our induction course that we do with staff members, and we speak a lot about evaluation, and I just want to speak a little bit on the student voice especially. I'm just thinking like the idea of the suggestion box, and I often ask, if you really want to hear a student's voice, it's very easy to get that. And I think we should be practical in terms of, just where and how we actually gather student feedback. Yes, we can make use of technology to do that. And I think as part of the whole university kind of approach, to say let's make this kind of a project for the university, especially computer science, develop an app where you can easily give feedback. have these boxes, suggestion boxes for buildings at the administration building, wherever students are getting services, so that students can immediately at that particular point in time give feedback. It's not at a later point, at the end of a course or at the end of a program that they need to give feedback, but throughout, so that things do not escalate. Okay, that's all that I want to say. Thank you.
His hand was up from a colleague from dentistry who didn't say what his name is.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Sandy Almost from J2.